I can see the numbers, I can see big hand, little hand, but I can't comprehend what that means. Remember, I had some teachers when I was in high school that did not think that I could go to college because of my learning disability, and I had other people who didn't think I could do that.
This is Enable, the Disability Podcast, where we'll share stories, experiences, support, resources, and more for people with disabilities and different abilities. We are at Enable Podcast on social media. My name is Jeff, that's Jeff Herbert.
And my name is Kurt Hauer. We're talking with Michelle Steiner, a writer, photographer, and para-educator. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you both.
Absolutely. Now, Michelle, I want to start off by talking about a learning disability that you were diagnosed with, dyscalculia. Am I saying that correct?
It was dyscalculia or dyscalculia, but yeah, we get the point.
So what does that mean?
That is I have a specific learning disability in math, and I have difficulty with how numbers work. It's not that I see numbers or letters backwards, but I get lost in the steps of a math problem where even a calculator isn't much a help to me. I don't know all my addition, subtraction, multiplication facts. I'm also not able to tell time on the face of any analog clock. I can see the numbers, I can see big hand, little hand, but I can't comprehend what that means. I also have difficulty with my right and my left, and I also have limited hand dexterity in both of my hands, so that affects my fine motor skills, unlocking doors, opening up jars, things like that. Things will fall out of my hands, and I also have visual perception issues, but that is with my brain, not my eyes. So I am able to see normally, but I'm not able to drive. I have anytime somebody comes in my field of vision, I will blank, and that can be really difficult. So I'm not able to drive, and it was hard for me, especially going growing up with gym class. That was a nightmare for me.
I wanted to ask a quick follow-up question. When you say that you can't drive, is that because of the hand dexterity issues, or is that because with the learning disability, you have issues with right and left?
It's a little bit of both. When I look back at a lot of what is going on, it all goes back to one thing, which is my brain is wired differently. So we have the visual perception that can make it really difficult to just coordinate everything together and my reaction time. We have the hand dexterity that can make it difficult with just with shifting gears and everything. And then the right and the left. That's another thing with the dyscalculia that I have. And that's something that I probably could drive if I was just driving in a parking lot or the car or the streets and the highways didn't have any other cars on them. I probably could figure it out to that point, but I don't wanna put myself in danger or anybody else by being on the road.
Well, thank you. Well, imagine that there are a number of different learning disabilities, and this is one type. But what kind of resources are there for people with learning disabilities? And being that you're a teacher, are there certain lesson plans that can help people with learning disabilities?
Well, one of the things when a child gets diagnosed with a learning disability is they have that diagnosis, and it's not exactly an official one from a psychiatrist when you're young, but we develop an IEP, an individualized education plan to support the needs of every child that comes in, whether that's a learning disability or it's another type of disability. So what we try to do is we try to look for okay, the what they're doing in the classroom may not be working for this child. So how do we do that? And for me, I had specialty instruction in all 4 areas in all my areas of education in the very beginning. I had to repeat kindergarten, and I had to we had reading, we had writing, we had, math, and we even had little stations for my eye-hand coordination that we did too. So that was in the very beginning, and they figured out that I could be in regular ed for reading and for science and social studies, but I needed to have accommodations in those classes and supports so I could be in there. So some of that was I would have to have the test read aloud to me. I would need extra time on tests. They put me in front of the classroom because I also had fluid in my ears for many years when I was a young child, so I had speech therapy. It was just I wasn't hearing sounds correctly, and if you can't hear the instruction, then you're not going to really be able to, definitely comprehend that. So I we had some of those resources, and those were some of the things in school that really helped me to be a success and to do that. And later on in life, those are things that I could even use when I went to university. I was able to have, uh, the extended test time. I also had a note taker and in tutoring, and it's when I use those strategies, that's what helps me. But it's really meeting that student wherever they're at, and I try to do that with a lot of the kids that I work with working along with their IEPs and what they might need. But I also take it an extra step too. I want to show my students how to advocate for themselves because a lot of my students, they're always going to have their disability. And I also know that they're one day going to leave me. And I hope that every hope and dream of theirs comes true, but they're going to have to know how to advocate for themselves too. And I think that's a really important part of educating a student with a learning disability or any type of disability.
Well said. A lot of what you were describing just reminded me of my own educational experience. I had an IEP as someone who had a profound hearing loss. I wore an FM unit. I sat at the front of the classroom. A lot of the classrooms had carpeting to absorb the sound to make it less noisy for me. Um, I would get note takers and I'd go to special areas, I'd do speech therapy, all of that. And it's a lot of hard work. And I think it's something that a lot of other kids and families don't necessarily notice or appreciate. And I think it's all the more amazing when you do something really special and you're able to achieve the things that you want to do. Did you ever have any teachers or employers raise doubt about your abilities?
I have. I can remember I had some teachers when I was in high school that did not, well, one that did not think that I could go to college because of my learning disability, and she suggested a trade school. And it's really interesting to think, first of all, nothing there interested me. And then I can look back on how my disability impacts me. I don't think anyone would want me to cut their hair for cosmetology. I certainly can't drive an ambulance or a cop car with, so protective services was out. I cooking, that involves math, and I just didn't think none of those programs interest me or was going to work out for me. So I decided that was going to go to college. And I had other people who didn't think I could do that. I had a psychiatrist who thought that based on my test scores, I would most likely not go beyond community college. I got to community college and disability accommodations were there was a huge stigma that surrounded them. I had that was from staff and students. I can remember when I asked for a calculator in a math class, I was told, "Well, we use our brains in this class, not calculators." I had an advisor who told me, "Well, you're going to have really limited job choices when you graduate because if you're going to do an art project with little kids, you're not going to know how much paper to give for a project." And that's not to say that hasn't happened, but I have strategies that I'm able to use to be able to to correct that. There's ways to compensate. And I can even remember other students thinking that if you went to have a test read aloud to you or you had extra time on a test or went for tutoring, somebody was giving you the answers. And that's was not the case at all. And I can just remember not wanting to use those services because of that. I even had people that told me, "Well, you may not find someone that is gonna wanna marry you because you have a disability." And, yes, there were people who couldn't accept that, and that's okay too, but I was able to find somebody. I also had people that professors that would say, "Well, I don't know if you're gonna get published," or, "I don't you're not a great writer," and even some of the psychiatrists would tell me, like, when I talked about job choices after I got my bachelor's, they were telling me, "Well, based on your test scores here, you're not going to be able to organize news articles or photographs." And I find it funny because I'm able to do that with my blog. And so I had a lot of people who would look at a lot of the things that I couldn't do, and they couldn't see what I could do.
Well, that's a bumper attitude, and you certainly proved your naysayers wrong. And That's important, and that's an inspiration to so many others. And I think that it's important for you to maybe share some advice for others who might have been told the same thing. Hey, you're never going to do this, you can't do that, but looking at it instead of what they can do. And could you share a little bit more about that?
I think that was something that I have to think about the things I can do. There are certain things that I'm not able to do. Math, driving, all the kids know in the classroom, do not ask me for help with math because I can't do it. And I'm not ashamed with that. I'm okay with that in my life. And I had to make some really wise choices. I knew I wanted to go to college and work with kids, but I also knew becoming a certified teacher wasn't going to be the best option for me. I know I'm not a great test taker. I knew that some of the content I couldn't teach. So I had to think, well, what can I do? Can I go in and I had to find a program that had the least amount of math and science possible. It had courses, that were more project based rather than just going in with a midterm, a final, and some quizzes and maybe a paper. I knew that those courses will work for me, so I had to really take some consideration into that before I took a class if I could. And I also find when I do activities that I love doing, like reading or photography or writing, I don't feel like I have a disability. I feel happy, I feel empowered, and I think that's so important because a lot of times everybody can do something. Every single person has something that they're good at, something that they enjoy doing, and they can shine with. And I think it's finding those activities that you are good at and what gives you that joy and trying to worry less about the things that give you difficulty, but find a way around them. Find a way to be able to work with that. You may not be able to drive, but somebody can give you a ride, or else you might be able to walk to where you need to go. And it's finding those ways and setting yourself up for success rather than failure.
That's beautiful. You also told us about issues with visual perception and limited hand dexterity, and you've talked about how that affects with options like driving or certain types of jobs you might work. But what about in your daily life? What kinds of challenges come with that?
Well, one of the things, I wake up in the morning and I am not able to drive myself to work. So my husband's able to do that. And I have a great coworker that takes me home at the end of the day. And if I'm not able to have either one of those, I'm able to walk to my job. So that's one of the ways. And I get to take pictures of flowers that, uh, and notice details that other people would miss when I'm on my walks. And I find a lot of beauty in that. It can also be really hard with me also with, opening up jars. That can be difficult. My hands just sometimes don't do that. So I have, jar openers and bottle openers. I also have, just little grip things that can help sometimes with that. I also find it hard to be able to open, unlock, and lock our door. So, that can be a challenge for me. It's difficult for me to budget and know how much money we have coming in, how much money is going out. Sometimes completing the forms can be really difficult. If it's anything math related, that can be hard for me. I'm terrible at following directions. That's always a challenge. Or if somebody gives me a set and they tell you, okay, go left, go right, that's always hard for me to be able to do. So sometimes I have to take myself when I'm in a new place. I have to just go in and then figure it out for myself where I'm going. And then once I know it, I understand where that is.
Michelle, as you said, you focus on the things you can do rather than the things that you can't do. And here on the podcast, Jeff and I believe in that theory, and so does our audience. And, um, you're an accomplished writer, you're an accomplished photographer, and we would like to know more about what you do as a writer and photographer.
Well, one of the things with my writing is I put a lot of nature metaphors. I might talk about on my blog about my life with a learning disability, but I'll do a nature metaphor. So I might talk about how it's the process of a flower that's unblooming, or I might talk about how it's a process of a butterfly. Butterflies are another big part of my life. I love that transformation they've gone through, and I've gone through that transformation with my disability. And I try to make that in a way that people are able to understand. That's simple but it also, just gives an analogy with somebody as well, and then my photography is also a big part of my life. As I said, I take a lot of pictures on my walks, and that gives me that chance to notice details that other people will miss while they're behind the wheel of a car, and I get to literally stop and smell the roses and take those pictures and see observe all those changes and I get that chance to take that picture of them, and sometimes I'll put them on my blog, and other times I'll feature them in magazines or I'll just share them on social media because I just wanna brighten somebody else's day up as well. Because I know those flowers really made my day seeing that. And I've got that chance to rather than being sad sometimes when I don't have a ride, I get to think to myself, "Wow, there's so many things I would miss, and there's so much beauty out there that I just wanna get a chance to see." And then I started comparing that to my life with a disability and thinking, "There is so much beauty in my life, and if I would have had another life, there's just so many things I would have missed out on."
Well, that's funny because you and I share something in common. I have butterfly gardens, and I take great joy and satisfaction in that. Just looking at the flowers and the butterflies when they come to feed and different things like that. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I love that. I always learn something new from Kurt whenever we do an episode of the podcast.
Right.
But we also want to know more about you, Michelle. As an educator, what kinds of lessons do you hope that students can learn from you?
I hope that my students can learn that having a disability isn't going to stop them from anything in life and that they can go out and they can do that and to put that hard work in and to always do their best. I think that's important too. I really hope that my students understand that they may have a disability, but it's not the only thing about them, and there are things that they can do to be successful in life, and I try to really encourage them. I try to find what the things they are good at. Sometimes I might have a student that might be drawing a picture, and I'll be like, "Wow, that's a really good picture. I really like that." And I get that chance to do that, and all that builds because I know that's the way it was for me. My dad found a story that I wrote in 2nd or 3rd grade about a dinosaur and said, "Wow, this is really good." And until somebody told me that, I didn't think I was good at anything. So I think it's finding those gifts, finding those talents, and just really encouraging that. And I also just think that not everybody has it together. Not everybody knows all the answers. I think that's how I'd like to put that because I might come in and I can't help you with math, and I'm really honest about that. But that really just shows humility that adults have things that they struggle with, adults have things that they can't do, and everybody has something they're good at, and everybody has something they struggle with. And it's just really important in life that we focus on the things that we can do and the things that are good in our lives, and we move forward.
So, Michelle, you should feel really proud of the impact that you've had on these students and others. And thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to share?
I would just love to tell people that success doesn't always come in the package that you expect, but sometimes it comes in something even better, and keep your face towards the sunshine and you won't see the shadows.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you for brightening our day. This is Enable, the Disability Podcast. We are at Enable Podcast on social media. Please like, follow, and subscribe.
Please share this podcast with your friends and family so we can share more stories about people with different abilities that bring us all together. Thank you.